Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Kansas City, the college basketball capital of America and home of the 75th annual Buffalo Funds NAIA Basketball Division I Men's Basketball National Championship.
This is what we've been working on all year long. We wanted to put ourselves in position to win a national championship.
Does this do anything? Does this do anything? Does this do anything? Does this do something?
You get in a position like this, last thing you want to do is cheat yourself.
When you commit to something, do it 100%. Sell out 100%. It might not be the right thing to do, but do it 100%.
Be smart, be strong, and be stubborn.
You're nervous, just like I am, because you care about it. Let's go out and be special tonight.
Okay. Go, Swarm! Swarm! Go! Go! Get to the rack!
What's the matter? We gotta play together. Our mistakes are finally catching up to us now.
Yes, sir! Yes! Get in there and rebound the ball!
Y'all wanna go home? Let's just go home now.
Yes! Yeah!
We are here in the magnificent $6 million municipal auditorium of Kansas City, Missouri tonight.
You start back in '37, you've got small college basketball teams all coming to Kansas City to play a national championship in municipal auditorium. Here we are 75 years later, still playing in the same arena with college basketball players, typically at small schools, all coming to play for a national title within 1 week. Part of the uniqueness is the fact that it hasn't changed that much. The players have changed, the coaches have changed, the faces have changed. I'm going to guess in 25 years from now, 2037, when we celebrate the 100th anniversary, we're going to have 32 teams coming back to Kansas City, to Municipal Auditorium, to play out in the same format, to determine the national champion, to be awarded the Maud Naismith Trophy. There's other tournaments been around for a while. There's other tournaments that have great players, great coaches, etc. But none has quite the combination of the facility, the history, the people, the fans, the longevity, all wrapped up into one. This is special.
I have come here with some of my friends that are Division I NCAA institutions, and they said, this is basketball on steroids. This is back to back to back to back. They said, how can you do it all day long?
And you are really a basketball junkie. The NAIA tournament is the best tournament in the world.
There's 32 teams here and only one leaves happy. There's 31 sets of broken hearts, and you know, you pray you're not one of them, but you usually are.
And one of my players told me, Coach, this is not a tournament, this is survival.
Do you remember the best time in your life? Do you remember putting those baseball cleats on? Do you remember making that first basket? Do you remember the smell in the gym that you walked in the very first day? Well, that's the NAI.
This is my 71st year to be here, except for the 2 years I was in the Marine Corps and they wouldn't let me come home from Guam. I even wrote a letter to the governor of Missouri to see if he could pull anything on it. He never answered, so I never voted for him again.
Anybody that can explain it to you, then it's nothing big. When you love somebody, you can't explain to people why you love them. You can't explain what it means to coach a team and to not want to lose your team, to keep your team as long as you can.
What's your favorite sport movie? My favorite sport movie is Hoosiers. Well, this is Hoosiers happening out here.
most important thing that you got to remember when you go out there tonight is who you are. Okay? Shorter basketball. You didn't build it. It came before us. It'll be here after us, but you sure are helping make it better. Make it better. Let's go. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Kansas City, the college basketball capital of America, and home of the 75th annual Buffalo Funds NAIA Basketball Division I Men's Basketball National Championship.
Right hand, and the tournament is underway.
Defeats Oklahoma Baptist 72-69 for the NAIA Division I National Championship.
Grandfather bought and sold cattle, so we came to Kansas City quite often. He'd always come down during the NAIA tournament and sell cattle in the stockyards down in the bottoms. We would take a room, bunk beds in the YMCA, $1 or $2 a night per person. And then we'd go over and eat in the Pioneer Grill every morning for breakfast and come to the NAIA tournament. It started a long time ago, and I just got a string going and decided not to ever miss.
I was in high school. I was 13 years old. I had a tendency to play hooky every once in a while. I heard about this tournament, so a couple of buddies of mine and I came down and we fell in love with it.
Back in our time, this was the tournament.
Back in those days, you know, if you could find a ticket in the mid-level, it was quite an accomplishment.
I came out here my first year of coaching at McKendree. It was 1966-67, and saw St. Benedict's beat OBU in the championship game. And this place was a standing room crowd, and I was just sold on NAIA. So from that time on, I've been every year to every tournament.
Well, this tournament's where we got our start. You know, the NAIB, National Association of Intercollegiate Basketball, started in 1937 with James Naismith and Emil Liston and Frank Kramer came together and created something for this building, for Municipal Auditorium back in 1937. And 75 years later, we're still here with a 32-team format and playing it out over a week span. But it's really become what the NAIA is known for.
It's a great experience to tell your fans about where you're going to. And you try to explain to them the Municipal Auditorium, and they say, well, I've never heard of that. We tell them it's the most historic place in America when it comes to basketball havens. And then when you tell your student athletes that's where you're going to get to play, that makes them feel special.
There's a lot of other tournaments out there now. There's certainly the NCAA has gotten very big. You got Division II and III, you got the junior colleges, you have different levels. But the NAIA has a unique place in the history and has become truly a historical piece in both the Kansas City community and the game of college basketball. It has its own special niche for a number of reasons, for the longevity that it's had, for the historical founding fathers that it's had, for the significant players and coaches and great games that it's had over the years, and it's the fans. Many people have come for 50 plus years in a row to this tournament, which is unbelievable. All of it wrapped into one makes it unique and makes it special.
Well, first of all, you mentioned NAIA, you just got to mention basketball. I'm a memory person. I work with younger people now. I tell them, fellows, whether you know it or not, you're making memories. You are making memories, and then you're going to reflect back on those memories. There'll be some bad memories, and you'll forget them the best you can. But everything I've done has been with basketball.
I grew up in Alabama, and I grew up at a time whereas most of the traditional black institutions are all NAIA institutions. So that's all I knew.
Playing at Tennessee A&I, Tennessee State, we were the first team to ever win 3 national college championships here at the NAIA.
Being a person of color, when there were no opportunities to play in these postseason tournaments, NAIA afforded people like myself to be able to showcase their skill on a national level in a national tournament.
This was in the rigors of segregation, and even Kansas City here where we sit today was segregated. And I must say at that time, every young black male in the South, your life was in jeopardy.
I look at teams like Alabama and Auburn and Georgia and all these schools, whereas when I was coming out of high school, I happened to be the player of the year in the state of Alabama and didn't have an opportunity to go to any of those schools, but I could have gone to an NAIA school.
Very few people wanted to play us. In those days, the NBA consisted of 8 teams, and 4 players off of our teams went to the NBA.
When you really get down to it, athletics is that great equalizer. It's that great place where people are people. They're not that he's a black player or a white player. Can you play?
There you go. Oh, big old boy. My first one was Tennessee A&I. That's when they won. They was a 3-peat in the late 50s. And that was my first time. So that was 57, 50. Back there. Mm-hmm. You know, we veterans here. You know, we've been around a while. Yeah, I'll be here today, tomorrow, and all the rest of the week. To the end of the term. Now you gotta love the sport. You gotta love the sport. You know, you gotta love the sport. If you like basketball, regardless of what level you're on, you know, myself, I'll do what I do. You know, it might be a diamond in the rough here, and you say, I seen that guy down there at the NAIA. Because it does happen. And the majority of them will never make it to the NBA. You know, but what they're doing now, they plan like it could be the end of their college career. And so after this, you know, they done, but you can say, hey, we participated in the NAIA.
There's no question who the harder playing team is on the floor.
Somewhere in your life, you have to meet somebody that expects greatness from you.
You guys look scared. You got deer in headlight look.
And that's usually going to be a coach.
Let me draw up the offense real quick. Everybody look at this offense. This is a great offense. Guard comes down, he passes it, and we go, and nobody damn rebounds.
It's going to be a coach that pushes you beyond what you think you can do.
Second thing we do is we come down, we dribble, we don't pass, and nobody rebounds.
And the NAIA doesn't have a corner and all the great coaches in the world.
Go! Come on, run with him! Get up! Get up!
There's a lot better chance to find one in the NAIA because those are guys are coaching because they love coaching, not the lifestyle of coaching.
I ain't ready to go home. I ain't ready to go home, so y'all find a way.
They do their work out on that floor with those kids every day.
Yes! Yes! Go! Get to the rack! Yeah! Got it, baby, Brian! Got it, baby!
If you're not improving character in your kids, then you really shouldn't be coaching.
Now, once again, I want to give some crazy speech.
The most important thing I can teach y'all is this right here, the fifth thing. What is it?
Overcome adversity. The next 20 minutes will decide your fate.
How am I going to motivate Bobby Smith tonight? What can I say that'll touch his heart?
Guys, our season is a book, and the last chapter is blank for us to write.
All I can tell you is in basketball and in life, you're going to face adversity. My plea to you, my plea to everybody in here is not to overcome it by yourself.
What special notes do I have? I'm going to be real honest with you guys. There ain't no special.
It ain't about anybody else, it's about us.
That's what tonight's about. Ain't no special speech. Ain't got no magic wand.
Does it move you in a way where this brotherhood, where it means something?
There's two things that's hard to endure in coaching. One's losing after you've been dominant, winning. And the other one is to tell a kid to do something you're not doing yourself.
You just go out there and do everything that you've done all year that's gotten you 34 wins.
the reward goes to you guys. You guys earned it. It's your team. It's your season. It's your career.
You understand that? Go out there and make it happen. Believe in what you're doing.
We're not running on fumes yet. We're not running on fumes yet. There's still gas left in the tank.
It's all about character, or it's not worth doing.
We're not satisfied in here. Good work, baby!
What you sipping, dog? A cup of syrup. What you? A blood of stupid perk.
The only thing that's different between NCAA Division I and NAIA Division I is 3 inches.
Hustle back, hustle back!
They're 3 inches bigger or an inch quicker, but that's the extent of it.
We don't have the future NBA players for the most part, but the fact is these kids compete in a real big manner. This is the most important thing in the lives of these young players this week. That first game that they play, they may never get an opportunity to play on that big a stage again.
What I love most about the NAIA is you see kids out there who are NAIA athletes. After another teammate goes down on the floor, they're wiping up the sweat with a towel. They are people that you want to be around, and they're people who do the little things, the sacrificial things that you don't see with a lot of athletes on TV these days.
A wiser guy than me said, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We've got two choices. We can either keep fighting or we can start going to the bench. If you don't invest in your guys off the floor, they're not going to do anything for you on the floor. We're still fighting. Let's keep fighting, but we got to fight smarter.
One of the greatest things about NAIA is that the student athlete is indeed a student and a scholar first. I think of NAIA as the college division of choice for students who want to go and study and prepare for life and go to an outstanding educational institution and still play very competitive sports that get a lot of attention nationwide.
No foul. Hold your heads high. Hold your heads high.
When it's all said and done, and we talk about the end of the day, we talk about character.
If this was all there was to life, I don't know if I could go on right now. If this was all there was, I don't know how you would fill this void.
You guys are winners. And good things happen to winners. There's bigger things in life than just basketball, trust me.
Y'all got bright futures. Let this hurt, man. Let this motivate you. Go be a better man. Get ready to go be a better dad, a better husband.
But the truth of the matter is, we are trying to run a program that's built on playing a man. And what I want you guys to be is learn to be men.
It helps you learn and grow from this. It makes you a better person, then it's going to be okay. The sun will come up tomorrow, I promise you. The sun will come up.
When you stop counting the wins and stop counting the losses, when all that's said and done, it's about what kind of person you are. I am so happy that NAIA stands for Champions of Character.
We launched our Champions of Character program back in 2000 because for years and years the NAIA had been standing for character, and we wanted to put some form around that. So we launched the NAIA Champions of Character program to exemplify 5 core values: respect, responsibility, integrity, servant leadership, and sportsmanship, because that's what our coaches and administrators have been teaching through athletics.
He liked basketball played by college students, by high school students, and he loved what he called backyard ball. And that was where there was a hoop set up and people played for the love of the game or because they were practicing or just for fun. And that's what he invented the game for fun. All of us knew it. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary to us, except that no one believed it. And so no matter how often you said it, no one believed it. And so you quit saying it after a while because no one believed it. And even now, when you tell people that you are his granddaughter, you can tell which ones believe it and which ones don't. And a friend of ours said, I looked it up in the encyclopedia when I got home, and he said, you were right. And I said, well, I knew I was right when I told you that.
It's hard for me to even remember that I scored that much. You know, everything, we had a patterned offense, and everybody in Oklahoma, Midwest said, Coach Sullivan, you got to pass the ball 10 times before you shoot. Well, I believe it was in '56, we scored 120 points one ball game and 98 in another ball game here in the tournament. And so you don't pass the ball 10 times before you shoot. I think I scored 53 in one of the ball games in the '56 year. I had been hurt. My senior year, Christmas, I got my hand broken down in McNeese. Had it in a cast. I never missed a ball game. Played with a cast on my hand. Took the cast off on a Wednesday and went up to East Central on Saturday night and got my jaw broken. They wired my teeth together on Sunday. I never missed practice on Monday. Went ahead and played and drank through a straw. And that was that way for 4 weeks. And I had just got back well when we came to the tournament, and everything just went well. I couldn't have asked for it to be any better. I believe it was Bevo Francis that we watched in warm-up. He could palm the ball and do anything with it, one-handed. We couldn't do that. Ours had to be steady, two-hand passes. Everything was great.
Well, Matt is a great story. His father played for me, Steve Lar, back in the day. And he said, Coach, I've got one of my sons I want you to look at. And Matt was about 6'6" and about 300 pounds. And he came to work out with us, and we're at that time up-tempo, 100 points a game kind of team. I thought, gee whiz, I don't know about this. And so we tried him, and he had great hands. He could catch it and good IQ. I thought, well, I'm going to try it. We recruited Matt, and he grew 5 inches in 1 year. And we redshirted him. So then he was there 5 years and played 4. He's a 4-year starter, a 4-year all-conference player. And all during that time, he never missed a game. The big guy was a competitor. He really took it serious. He had a lot of fun on the floor, but he played so hard. He'd have a sprained ankle or a big blister and still would manage to play.
The first game I officiated here, I had a couple of things happen to me. I threw my shoe in the very first game. I made a foul call and made a quick jump stop and pivoted to call the foul, and my shoe flew off. So I went to the table, reported the foul without a shoe, with one shoe on, and came back, put the shoe back on, tied it tighter, and went on with the game. Lorenzo Clark from Los Angeles. I think Lorenzo was probably in his 60s by the time he was officiating here, but the fans were on him like awful. And the reason they were on him is because he just looked up and smiled at them. And every single time at the end of the game, those fans would be down there at the tunnel waiting for him to come out so they could talk to him because they enjoyed what he was doing. And he would stop before he'd go and take his shower. He'd stop and shake hands with them, talk to him about how the game went. That kind of thing doesn't happen today, but in those days it did. Lorenzo had a good time with them. They were on him. He said, be on me, that's fun, that makes it fun.
I remember one year we won a national championship, but everybody on my team wanted to be a guard. I want to play guard. I said, you're all guards. And he said, we beat Oklahoma Baptist.
Most man was 6'1".
Yeah. And I said, okay. I said, you're all guards. I said, I introduced every one of them, and starting at guard, all 5 of them were guard. And it's up here. I said, now when you're playing guard, you may have to shoot some from the wing or some from the short corner. But I said, you're still a guard.
It was a monumental time in my life as a young man. And also it was a monumental time in experiencing what was happening in America. Playing at Tennessee A&I, Tennessee State, we were the first team to ever win 3 national college championships here at the NAIA. But I think even more remarkable, we accomplished that as America was in the convulsion of issues of race. Martin Luther King was marching in the streets, Malcolm X, all the indices that surrounding America in its changes we were a part of. So I not only remember the basketball part, but I remember very vividly the circumstance in which we won those championships and how America has changed through the years. My coach was determined that we were not going to come here unless we as players lived in the same hotels, received the same accommodations as every other team was receiving in this environment. And he was very instrumental in changing what was in place at that particular time. So, you know, that was the atmosphere that we lived in. One of the things that people really don't know, even after we had won those championships and we disembarked from the planes coming back from Kansas City after the winning the NAIA, as students at Tennessee State, we went straight downtown and was sitting at lunch counters desegregating what was going on in Nashville, Tennessee. So we were, you might say, foot soldiers of Dr. Martin Luther King and the whole movement for social justice. It wasn't ego, we just felt we had the best talent, and we had a great coach, and we were in tremendous shape conditioning-wise. We ran everybody off the court. Mike Lennon, Coach Mike Lennon was exhibiting the fast break, which later other coaches covered and started copying what we were doing in the 1950s. And so we didn't have any reservations about our talent. We felt the only reservation we had was being invited into the dance. Once we got to the dance, we knew we were the best.
Well, my first experience with the NAIA was as an NAIA athlete. I played at Westmont. We came here. In fact, I wore a cowboy hat on the plane. And when I was going to Kansas City, and we as teammates were singing that song as we were on the plane. Played in Kemper, lost in double overtime to Central State. Central State lost the next game to Grand Canyon in 5 overtimes. So I tell people I was 7 overtimes away from a national championship, which is kind of a funny way of saying it because we weren't in that game, that 5 overtime game. But one of the great games in the history of the NAIA tournament is that 5 overtime game in which Central State lost to Grand Canyon, and they were probably worn out from the game that we played against them a night earlier. We played very, very well against Mountain State in a game that they were averaging 95 points a game, and I think we held them to 48 points. We beat them 75-48. And one of these old NAIA guys who looked like he was about 80, I walked by, didn't even know him, going to go talk on the radio, and he says, "Excuse me, Coach Moore, excuse me, Coach Moore." After we'd beaten a very good team, highly rated team, he said to me, "How the heck did you guys lose 9 games this year?"
I'm so enthused about this tournament. When I was in the state senate for 10 years, whenever I usually I've made all the ball games, but when I was there for 10 years, when the Senate would adjourn, I would drive up here. There was no speed limit in Missouri at that time. And so I'd be driving 90, 100 miles an hour to get here. And then I'd watch all the games and then drive back to Jefferson City, which is a 2.5, 3-hour drive. And everybody said, "You're crazy." I said, "No." And so I started bringing a couple of senators with me each time.
How much longer are you going to be here? How much longer are you going to come?
Till I die. They may bring me down here in a coffin.
This college athletic journey is a journey, and it does not stop. Somewhere along the line in the next week or so, the journey will stop. The basketball doesn't stop. Their relationship doesn't stop. It just transcends to an upstage of their life.
From the recruiting aspect, when one of our coaches is sitting in the living room with parents and they can talk about the 5 core characteristics of what's important to not just the NAIA but our university. You know, the parents are a whole lot more at ease and understand that that's part of the maturation process and growing up and becoming a productive member of society.
In the NAIA we have 60,000 student athletes, and we know that a small percentage of those are going to play professionally, but at the NAIA the vast majority of those student athletes are going to need to go on to be doctors and lawyers and teachers and firemen and firewomen and things like that. And so what we want to do is use our Champions of Character program to equip them to go out and be productive in the workplace, but also productive mothers and fathers, productive brothers and sisters and friends and community servants, and that's what Champions of Character does.
I think we all get caught up in trying to reach the highest level possible. My brother-in-law is Steve Lavin. He was the coach at UCLA. He's now the coach at St. John's. He was an ESPN color guy for 7 years. Steve is a pro. He's a pro at what he does. And he often says to me, John, why don't you come help me at UCLA? Or why don't you come help me at St. John's? And what I always say to him is, Steve, I'm sorry, but I've got a better job than you do. He laughs, he smiles, he says, you're right. When I think of the NAIA, when I think of programs like Westmont, they're the places I want my kids to go to school.
For three, won't go as McKay had a look at it. And Concordia defeats Oklahoma Baptist 72-69 for the NAIA Division I National Championship.
My first NAIA game coaching, we were against Kearney. Half hour before the game, everything was great, and then my whole world started falling apart because of just the being in the big time.
Oh, buddy, I'm taking this home.
But the big time, like Frosty Western says, is where you are.